When you have a new clinic or business, it's like having another child, and it's constantly on your brain. And it was riskier to reach out and do something on my own than it was to stay, but I believe it was worth it.
Welcome to The Path to Owning It, a podcast by Provide, powered by Fifth Third. Here, we share real stories and raw lessons from business owners who have lived them. Join us as we spotlight one entrepreneur's journey at a time, from the first spark of an idea to the pivots, challenges, and wins that shape their path. Because entrepreneurship isn't a straight line. It's personal, unpredictable, and full of lessons worth sharing. I'm your host, Corey Brown, a marketing leader at Provide with over a decade of experience supporting small business owners. Whether you're just starting out or deep in the game, this is where you'll hear the unfiltered reality of building something that matters. Like what you hear? Follow The Path to Owning It on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Kate McGowan. Dr. Kate is an Atlanta area entrepreneur and the owner of the Healthy Pet Veterinary Clinics. She has a business background, a foundation in high-end hospitality, and experience across both private and nonprofit work. She turned that unique blend into a company that has scaled to 2 locations built on strong service, culture, and long-term ownership, all while creating time, stability, and options for her family. Dr. Kate, welcome back to our show. We're so happy to have you today.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. And as we mentioned, you're no stranger to the show, but for listeners who might be meeting you for the first time, how do you describe what you do today and what it means that you own your own business?
Yeah, so I own my own small animal general practice. Started with 1 clinic, now we have 2, and we practice in our area, what's unique for our area, in a more of a boutique style. So we have smaller clinics that's really personalized, high-end hospitality driven type service. So it kind of separates us a little bit from some of the other clinics in our area.
And what does it mean to you that you own your own business? I know that, as we've mentioned, you have been an employee before. How does this feel different?
It feels different because I'm in control. I get to drive kind of the bus, but that comes with all kinds of different things. It comes with responsibilities, but also the fun. And I think every entrepreneur is a bit of a dreamer and we all have grand ideas, but it's also comes with some of the weight and responsibility of it, freedom to choose. It's multifaceted of what it means to own your own business.
Yeah. Can you tell us maybe a responsibility that comes to mind about ownership that people may not see or think of from the outside?
I think it's the weight of knowing your employees depend on you. People don't realize how much that weighs on an owner, and they don't think about that. Like when you cancel an appointment with us, you're not just canceling an appointment, you're canceling what I need to generate income and revenue to supply work and benefits in a life for my employees. And I think that's definitely something people don't look for or think about when they're dealing with a business of any kind.
Is that something that gets easier over time?
Yes and no. I think as your clinic grows, you get more volume. And so you can absorb some of those losses better. But I think every cancellation, you're like, ugh, it just gets to you. You still kind of, you're like, well, why?
Yeah, you take it personal, right?
You do.
Yeah.
You still take things personally. But I think what gets a little bit easier, again, as you get volume and momentum, is that you can absorb those things and you've weathered enough storms to kind of know, okay, this moment where it feels real heavy, it feels really bad, is temporary. 99% of the time, it works out just fine.
There you go. Take us back to that season of your life when ownership became a real possibility. And if you don't mind sharing, what was happening both, personally and professionally, and what made you just decide to take the leap?
Yeah. So at the time, I was working when we decided to open our clinic, I was working in nonprofit work. And while I enjoyed it, it afforded me many freedoms personally as far as time. So from a standpoint as a new mom, my kids were 1.5 and 3, and my stepchildren were in middle school. It was 4 days a week. I was in at 8:30, 9 o'clock and out by 2 o'clock. So, from a time perspective, it was great, but it was very limiting as far as financial and professional interests and growth. So it was kind of that feeling of I'm stuck and I need a change. but we can't leave the area we're in. This is where my stepchildren are. This is where their life is. And so we're here. And so it's what can I do with where I'm at? And my husband and I had always discussed potentially owning our own clinic at some point. There's always that at some point it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You just
Right.
never know when that is. And we were sitting on the couch one night in July and just were like, we feel the time is now. We're personally people of faith. So for us, it felt like a calling, but we had always thought about it. And so it was our time and we dove in. So that's kind of how we got to that decision.
Would you say at that point it felt riskier to stay where you were than to go out on your own?
No. Quite the opposite. Where I was very safe. It was doing well as far as a nonprofit, but it was very safe and almost too safe, where there was no room for growth anywhere, which is not always bad. It played its role at a part in my life when I needed it to, but it was riskier to reach out and do something on my own than it was to stay. But I believe it was worth it.
Yeah. How did you channel your strengths as, a wife and a mother into building the kind of business that you wanted to exist in the world? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So like I was saying, in the nonprofit, I had a lot of great hours. But when I worked in private practice before that, I had to work weekends. I had to work 8, 10, 12-hour days with no breaks. And I just looked at that and was like, well, what kind of quality of life was that? And when my first child was born at the clinic I was at the time, it was a private practice. Oftentimes I was up and out of the house before my son was awake and he was in bed before I got home. And that was just kind of like a lifestyle I didn't want. So I knew when starting our clinic that I needed something and wanted something that allowed me time with my family, with my children, with my husband. And so that kind of drove what we decided to do and to find that balance in life.
Yeah. Work-life balance is something we talk about a lot on the show. Were there any non-negotiables that the business had to honor from a work-life balance outside of giving you extra time?
Yeah, time was the biggest thing because that's always the thing you want more of, but can't get. You're limited just like everyone else. So I had to design the clinic such that when my husband was traveling at the time for his job, I had to be able to get my kids. I had to be able to pick them up and drop them off and still be able to see enough clients to make it financially feasible for the clinic. So, we did Monday through Friday scheduling. We don't work weekends. And then Wednesdays, we chose to be open noon to 7 instead of the traditional 8 to 5, like the other days we were open. It was multifaceted reasons for that. I mean, yes, I wanted more time, but it also was from an employee's perspective. I want my employees to not have to give up all their personal times on the weekends to get things done, as well as doctor's appointments, things of, personal nature. No one goes to Costco on Saturday.
I know. Are you crazy?
Because it is too crazy. It's busy, right? Because everyone waits to the weekend because we all work Monday through Friday. So not only personally, but for my employees to have a good quality of life. And for them, we scheduled Wednesdays a little bit later, just shifted the hours so that they could have a morning to schedule appointments, to live their life, to run to Costco when no one's there. Whatever their needs are, they had that. So it wasn't just me. It was what can we do to create a quality of life for our employees, because that lends into culture and that lends into other things that will make our business a good place to work and have a good culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Marriages are partnerships, right? My husband, Sean, and I often discuss career goals together before making these big decisions. So let's talk about that conversation in July on the couch. I'm a little curious, what kind of conversations had to happen at home before you could really move forward with confidence?
One of the biggest conversations was, what if this all fails? What then? How are we going to do this? Because one of the reasons I started my own clinic is my debt, my student loan debt was just overwhelming. And with what I was doing, even in private practice, I wasn't going to make enough in our area to pay that off in any kind of timely fashion. I was on the 20-year repayment plan and it was going to take all 20 years.
Yeah.
So we wanted more. So it was a conversation of this can get us more, this can get us there, and the exciting conversations. And I mean, we listened to so many podcasts and read so many books together. And it was actually really good from a marriage perspective because we did a lot together. But it also had to be a reality check of, well, what do we do if this fails? Can we live on just your salary? What if we, because everything's a personal guarantee too. So this adds to our debt. So are we okay adding to our debt at this point? A real gut check of, how much risk are we willing to take? What do we think the reward is? And what is our tolerance? And for us, it was a way out of debt. Even if we were taking on more debt, it was a way out. And it actually worked out that way. And it was a chance to prove I could do something. And he was very supportive of that. So
that's amazing.
And the roles, we talked about that a lot too, because I'm the sole veterinarian. Like I am a solo veterinarian. Everything is going to be dependent on me. So I can't do as much at home. So we kind of had a bit of a role reversal, and he became Mr. Mom, and he is still Mr. Mom. I won the lottery with my husband.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
So yeah, we had those types of discussions.
How did that all go? I mean, was there a learning curve? I mean, when he made the transition from traveling for work, you mentioned a lot, to becoming more Mr. Mom, did that create any sort of conflict, or was it pretty easy from the start?
Well, I mean, I'm a type A personality, so there's always conflict because I always think my way is the better way.
I don't know anything about that.
But my husband is thankfully not a type A and can kind of roll with it. So it's been something, I mean, when COVID hit, that's, I think, when it got really hard for my husband. He went from a job that he traveled a lot, and he worked when he was home, he worked in an office offsite. But when COVID hit, he had to work from home. Well, so my kids were home, but my clinic was still open. I was still going to work. So he took Mr. Mom to a whole new level. And that man is a champion for doing it. And he did really well, but it was a hard transition for him because he had a lot more responsibility. And we were still in the early parts of owning our business. It was growing. COVID made it explode. So it was just me and one other person with an exploding clinic. And he's at home with two young children under 5.
Right.
Trying to keep them alive and trying to still work and be a good employee for his employer. And it was a lot. And he had to pay the bills and do all the things because I ran out of bandwidth. So, I mean, there's a learning curve to it. And there's a lot of grace that has to be given to each of us. There were times I had to step in and do more than I felt I could. And he steps in and more often than I does a lot more than he should.
I like that, showing grace. I think that's really important. Sometimes we don't think about what happens at home, and you just think about the business and what that looks like from the outside. So thank you for giving us a candid look at that. You know, a lot of people say, I want to work for myself, and you have lived the difference, right, between being an employee and an owner. How would you explain that difference to someone who is thinking about starting something on their own?
It's a lot of dreaming. It's a lot of big ideas. It's a lot of excitement. Yes, there's some worry. For me, at least, the worry was always financial, like what happens if, just because I had already this huge debt from school. And so adding to that, but I didn't really feel the weight of that until I started. And I think a lot of the weight of it comes down to you get in there and you actually start doing the thing. You start being the veterinarian, being the business owner. And you realize when you were an associate working for somebody else, at least for me, I realized I think I hid behind somebody else.
Sure.
You didn't feel necessarily like you were the one who was out there. You weren't the one who, you were responsible ultimately. I mean, it's your license when you're practicing. But there's a safety in hiding behind another practice owner. There's a safety for just being the employee. You don't have to make any of the big decisions when, you know, somebody missteps at work. I don't have to deal with it. I can just do my thing and go over there. If something goes sideways with the client, you don't have to necessarily deal with it. That's for the business owner to deal with. But when you start your own, it's all on you. And you feel very naked and very exposed. But it's also extremely exciting because it's all yours. And when things don't go right, you get to choose how to change it and make it better. And you get to decide who joins your team and who is going to play what role. And you get to design all the protocols, and you get to pick all the things. And the clients also, while you are exposed and you are the one that basically is out front and it's your name, it's also your name. So when things go well and clients love your clinic, that's an amazing feeling. And they love you and they bond to you, and that in a new way. And it takes on a new feeling that you just don't get as an associate.
Yeah. Up until this point, we've talked about that leap into ownership and the mindset shift from employee to building something that can support your family long term. After the break, I want to get practical about what ownership has changed in your life, financially, personally, and what it takes to make it sustainable as a wife and a mom. More with Dr. Kate McGowan right after this. Are you fresh out of school with big dreams and ambition to achieve them? Or is your current business bursting at the seams and it's time to expand your legacy? If you tend to challenge the status quo and shoot for the moon, Provide's SBA loan may be for you. Our dedicated team of small business experts will work with you to make your ownership dreams, no matter how big, a reality. To get started, visit getprovide.com to see how our tech-enabled small business financing and banking can work for you. Again, that's getprovide.com for when your aspirations of business ownership exceed traditional limits. I'm Corey Brown, and this is Provide's The Path to Owning It. We're back with Dr. Kate McGowan. Before the break, we talked about the leap into ownership and the difference between being an employee and being an owner. Now, I want to get into what ownership has actually changed for her and what she wants other aspiring owners, especially women, to know. Dr. Kate, we talk to a lot of people that talk about freedom, but ownership often starts with pressure, which you mentioned a little bit earlier. Is there anything that comes to mind that got harder before it got better?
Everything.
Everything.
Everything, but definitely the business portion of it. I think if you come to owning your own clinics or business as, an associate who's had a medical director and you've been in charge of ordering and you've been in charge of managing personnel, maybe it wouldn't be as hard of a transition. But for me, while I have a degree in business administration, I was an undergraduate, in which, I don't know about everyone else's undergraduate, but my undergraduate didn't do a whole lot for me. So it was learning how to manage people that was the hardest part. And it still is the best and the worst part of owning your own business.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be. I'm sure there's just so many things that come up that you just can't prepare for.
You would be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you take on everyone else's problems. When you own the business, everyone else's personal problems are now your problems too, especially if you really care about your team, which I do. And it's hard sometimes finding that balance of being the boss and having to hold things down, but also hold people accountable, but also understanding these are humans who have their own lives and their own issues.
Yeah. I imagine you, to some degree, take that home with you too, right? At least the conversations you had or the thoughts. Do you separate work from home life as soon as you walk through the door? Can you talk through how you manage that?
I wish I could say I was that kind of person. I think some people have that personality where they can shut it off. I am not. And I think a lot of women aren't because, there's the joke that we have how many tabs open in our brain. Our browser tabs are just maxed out of all the thoughts we're having. And that's true. When you have a new clinic or business, it's like having another child. And it's constantly on your brain. And the bigger it grows, the more people you add, the more it demands of you and the more you have to think things through. And I am definitely one, my husband will agree to this, that likes to beat a dead horse. I need to talk through it 100 times in 100 different ways before I come to a conclusion on something or figure out what I'm going to do, which means I bring it all home a lot.
There's that type A personality, right?
That's right.
And you have to think through every outcome. One of the big reasons you mentioned that you went into this was financial, right? You had student loans that you wanted to pay off. So let's talk finances. What did ownership change about your family's stability, your options, and how you think about money now?
Yeah. So like I said before, we paid off all my student loan, which is over $150,000 in student loans. But I always wanted to be debt-free. I hate, especially, I'll be honest, when COVID hit, that scared, I think, a lot of us for many reasons. But for some of us, it was financial because I thought the clinic was going to fail in the very beginning. So I was going to have that debt. And then how was I going to pay off my student? How were we going to make student loan payments? There was that feeling, that burden and that weight was immense. And once we got to the point where we were able to pay off my student loans by owning these clinics, we wanted to live a debt-free life, to not ever have to feel that weight of it again. And I honestly don't think I would have gotten there had we not started our clinics. I would still be paying my student loans. But it also has afforded us nice vehicles. We enjoy that. We enjoy some nicer things. We have some kick butt vacations with our kids. Like we go some fun places and do some fun things. I have a retirement now, which for, the first however many years in practice. None of the clinics I worked for had any kind of retirement program. So I was able to start a 401k at my clinics. And not only I, but my employees can contribute and save for our futures in retirement so that my husband and I can have a kickbutt retirement too. It's just allowed us a little bit of security and margin that we would not have otherwise. And it's all because of the clinics and the success of them.
Well, that's amazing. Congratulations and good for you. I think that's a fantastic story. And, I'm curious, is there a money habit or metric or trick or something that you pay attention to consistently or want to share with our audience that you feel might help them?
Yeah, so this is one where early on in my clinic, there was a lot of discussion in certain forums over kind of ways to handle money. And I saw a lot of people will manage their businesses by taking out like lines of credit for when you have those tighter months and whatnot. And I had already decided that debt wasn't it because this is now past COVID. And I became a huge saver. I've always been a saver, so I save a lot. But I found the profit first method, which has helped me tremendously. So the basic principles of it, you can read in the book, but it basically allots money to different things. And you don't purchase or do any kind of major things in your business unless you have the money sitting there. And you set money aside first for profit. That's the whole name, is profit first. So I don't have lines of credit and I don't need them. And I have a nice pile of cash in my business that when we're in the middle of December and nobody's coming to their vet, or it's January and everybody's going, oh crap, I've got these credit card bills to pay off, I ensure that I have the ability to make payroll. Because again, these employees, like the way I view them is they come to work for me because this is their livelihood. This is what they do to pay their bills. This is what they do. So I need to ensure I have money there available to them. So saving, that would be the thing, is just pile up a bunch of cash. Don't take a bunch home until you have 3 to 6 months of expenses for your business built up.
Yeah. Okay. That's great advice. Thank you. Another big part of why you did this is what you said, is to spend more time with your family, quality time, right? And I would imagine that time is the currency that moms feel the most. Did you ever feel guilty about stepping away? And just talk about how you maybe worked through that a little bit.
Yeah. So yes, there's guilt. There's always guilt. There's mom guilt for all kinds of things. And I'm sure dads have their own forms of dad guilt. But yes, being a business owner, there are times I sacrifice a lot of my time with my family to make the business a success. But ultimately, I have to tell myself this is for our future. This is for the benefit ultimately of our family. And I think it shows them that mom can be both a mom and a wife, but also a business owner who can go out and help other people. And we try to highlight, hey, mom's not going to be here for this because mom's going to be at work helping somebody with their dog. Or when they were real little, we kept it real simple, but now we get a little more detailed so they understand. Or if I'm working on a weekend, it's, hey, mom needs to work on this because, and you fill in the blank. So they can start making the connections that this is not me just ignoring them. This is me working with them or working for them. But I think it's a bit of a fallacy to think that you can have it all. You really do need to make sacrifices, and you just have to decide what your priorities are and then commit to them for a period of time, and then you can reevaluate. But that's kind of how we've approached it. It's just in little chunks of this is what we're doing. Mom's making this work, and just keep it age appropriate.
Now, today, you have 2 successful clinics. What was the moment you realized that your business could run without you being the constant center of everything? Not that you are not still the center of everything to some degree, but talk about what changed to make that true.
I honestly think it was my first hire. It was my first associate hire because it was the first time I wasn't the only one that could see patients. I wasn't the one that had to be there all the time. And it gave me a little bit of breathing room, and it brought back a little bit of the fun of owning a practice. And after the second hire of my second associate is when I really started to get breathing room to think about the second clinic, because I didn't have to be in there all the time. When I brought on those first associates is when I think that change happened for me.
Was that difficult or like a mindset shift at all to start to trust, I guess, other people to run parts of the business for you, especially as a type A person?
Yeah.
Let's talk through that a bit.
So that's a work in progress.
Yeah.
So I was very tight-fisted, and I still am on some things. but I'm learning to let go and open up and let other people in and help. And my first associate, Dr. Christy, she's been through a lot. She's amazing. She's seen kind of the ugly sides of me and has very graciously kind of gone along with it as I've grown and opened up. But I think had it been a different personality type, it probably wouldn't have gone as smoothly. But she definitely was kind of the impetus for me to see how I needed to change. And I couldn't control everything. And I had to let go. And it's just been a constant work in progress, especially with adding the second clinic. I'm torn between two places. So I cannot do it all myself. So I've had to reach out for help and let go of some of it.
For others who might have trouble letting go a little bit, do you have any tips or tricks for them? Anything that you've learned along the way that you can pass along?
Yes, I think for key positions, especially, hire slowly. If somebody is not willing to sit through 3 rounds of interviews to work at your business, then maybe they're not right for you. I used to hire faster, and you often make mistakes there. But taking your time, finding the right people for the key positions that you're going to need help with. So your practice manager, office manager, associates, I would take a lot of time making sure you get the right people into those roles that will jive with your personality, the vision you have for your clinic, the vision for growth, the culture. Do they practice medicine in a way that's complementary to you? What I had to learn is they didn't have to practice medicine the way I did. Mm-hmm. That was a hard lesson, but it has to be complementary because this ultimately is my clinic and I want it to be run a certain way and I want a certain quality of medicine. So they have to be in line with that.
Absolutely. I'm curious for someone listening who's outside of the veterinary industry, do you have any advice for them of how they could try to replicate what you've accomplished here as a successful business owner?
Honestly, I don't think there's any magic secret sauce. I think it's more of being willing to be open to other industries. I mean, that's honestly where we got a lot of the ideas for our clinic. I mean, I worked for the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain before opening my own clinic years ago, back in my 20s. And it was an amazing experience, brought a lot of that into what I do. But I also look at everywhere I go. I think I look on how are they doing things and how can I incorporate that or something like that into my business? And that's, I think any industry, whatever you do, if you own a coffee shop, how can you make your coffee shop the best of the coffee shops around? I mean, I can make a pretty good cup of coffee at my house. So why would I come to your business? And the same thing is true for any business. Why would I choose you? And what is the distinguishing factor for you? And it doesn't have to come from your industry or anyone else's. I think you just have to look at everywhere and everything you do.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm curious for the wife or the mother listening who wants to start a small business, maybe has always had that itch, but feels afraid or unsure. What do you want her to hear? And can you give her one initial step she can take in the next 30 days?
I think just hear that you can do it. If this is really what you want, and again, you have to think of priorities. What is your priority? What is your end goal? How do you plan to get there? But don't be overwhelmed by all of it. You don't have to do all of it in the beginning. Just start. Start by talking to somebody, talk to a business owner that you know. And if it still seems like something you want to move forward with, then reach out to somebody like you all at Provide and just start having the conversation. So what does this look like? And just start gathering knowledge. The biggest, I think, hurdle or block to ownership is what we don't know. And when you have information, you have knowledge, it's not so scary.
Well, Dr. Kate, it's well said. And, thanks for being here and for sharing your perspective on what it really means to build a business, not just as a business owner, but as a wife and a mom, navigating all the trade-offs that come along with building something of your own. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Path to Owning It. No two journeys look the same, but every one is full of real moments, raw lessons, and stories worth sharing. We hope today's episode gave you something to take with you on your own path. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more listeners find these stories. Know an entrepreneur whose journey we should feature? Let us know in the comments or reach out on social. The Path to Owning It is brought to you by the team at Provide, powered by Fifth Third, where we back small business owners like you. If you're ready to bet on yourself, head to getprovide.com to explore tools, resources, and financing and banking options crafted to help you build your legacy. This show is produced by PodCamp Media, branded podcast production for businesses. PodCampMedia.com. Producer Dusty Weiss, editor Matt Covarrubias. For Provide, I'm Corey Brown. And to every small business owner out there, your story matters. Keep writing it.
Provide is a division of Fifth Third Bank, National Association. All opinions expressed by the participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Provide, its affiliates, or Fifth Third Bank. The participants' opinions are based on information they consider reliable, but neither Provide, its affiliates, nor Fifth Third Bank warrant its completeness or accuracy and should not be relied upon as such. This content is for informational purposes and does not constitute the rendering of legal, accounting, tax, or investment advice or other professional services by Provide or any of its affiliates. Please consult with appropriate professionals related to your individual circumstances. All lending is subject to review and approval.